Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 87, The Prayers of the Personified Vedas. Text 1. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshye Nirgune Gunavrittayah Katham Charanti Shrutayah Sakshat Sadasatah Pare. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshye Nirgune Gunavrittayah Katham Charanti Shrutayah Sakshat Sad Asatah Pare. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshye Nirgune Gunavrittayah Katham Charanti Shrutayah Sakshat Sad Asatah Paraye. Nirdeshe Nirgune Gunavrittayah Katham Charanti Sakshat Sad Asatah Pare. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshe Tayah Charanti Shrutayah Sakshat Sad Asatah Pare. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshye Nirgune Gunavrittayah Katham Charanti Shrutayah Sakshat Sad Asatah Pare. Matajis. Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshye Gunavrittayah Katham Charanti Shrutayah Sakshat Sad Asatah Pare. Shri Parikshit Uvacha Brahman Brahmanya Nirdeshe Nirgune Gunavrittayah Katham Charanti Shrutayah Sakshat Sad Asatah Pare. Shri Parikshit Uvacha. Shri Parikshit said, Brahman, O Brahmana, Shukadev, Brahmani, in the absolute truth, Anirdeshye, which cannot be described in words, Nirgune, which has no qualities, Guna, the qualities of material nature, Vrittayaha, whose scope of action, Katham, how, Charanti, function, by referring, Shrutayaha, the Vedas, Sakshat, directly, Sat, to material substance, Asataha, and its subtle causes, Pare, in that which is transcendental. Translation and purport by disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Shri Parikshit said, O Brahmana, how can the Vedas directly describe the Supreme Absolute Truth, who cannot be described in words? The Vedas are limited to describing the qualities of material nature, but the Supreme is devoid of these qualities, being transcendental to all material manifestations and their causes. Purport. It's a very long purport. Almost 3-4 pages. Before beginning his commentary on this chapter, Srila Sridhar Swami prays, Vag Isha Yasya Vadane Lakshmir Yasya Cha Vakshasi Yasyaste Hridaye Samvit Tam Nrisimham Aham Bhaje. I worship Lord Nrsimha, within whose mouth reside the great masters of eloquence, upon whose chest resides the goddess of fortune, and within whose heart resides the divine potency of consciousness. Sampradaya Vishuddhyartham Sviya Nirbandha Yantritaha Shruti Stuti Mita Vyakhyam Karishyami Yatha Mati. Desiring to purify my sampradaya and being bound by duty, I will briefly comment on the prayers of the personified Vedas to the best of my realization. Srimad Bhagavatam Purvaihi Sarataha Sanniveshitam Maya tu tad upasprishtam Uchishtam upachiyate. Inasmuch as Srimad Bhagavatam has already been perfectly honored by my predecessors' explanations, I can only gather together the remnants of what they have honored. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur offers his own invocation. Mama Ratna Vanik Bhavam Ratnyan Aparichinvataha Asantu Santu Jihiremi Na Swasvanta Vinodakrit. The saintly devotees may laugh at me for becoming a jewel merchant, though I know nothing about precious jewels. But I feel no shame, for at least I may entertain them. Namesti Vaidushyapi Napi Bhaktir Virakti Raktir Na Tathapi Laulyat Sudurgamad Eva Bhavami Veda Stutyartha Chintamani Rashi Gridnuhu. Though I have no wisdom or detachment I am still greedy to take the philosopher's stone of the Vedas' prayers from the fortress in which it is being kept. Mam nichatayam avivekavayuhu pravartate patayitum balach chet. Likham yataha Swami Sanatana Shri Krishnangri bhastambha kritvalambaha. If the wind of indiscretion, my failure to acknowledge my lowly position, threatens to knock me down, then while writing this commentary, I must hold on to the effulgent pillars of the feet of Sridhar Swami, Sanatan Goswami, and Lord Shri Krishna. Pranamya Shri Gurum Bhuyaha, Shri Krishnam Karunaranavam, Lokanatham Jagat Chakshuhu, Shri Shukam Tan Upashraye. Repeatedly bowing down to my spiritual master and to Lord Shri Krishna, the ocean of mercy, I take shelter of Shri Shukadev Goswami, the protector of the world and its universal eye. At the end of the preceding chapter, Shukadev Goswami told Parikshit Maharaj, Evam svabhaktayo rajan bhagavan bhakta bhaktiman Ushitva-dishya sanmargam punar dvaravatim agat. Thus, O King, the personality of Godhead, who is the devotee of his own devotees, stayed for some time with his two great devotees, teaching them how perfect saints behave. Then he returned to Dwarka. In this verse, the word sanmargam can be understood in at least three ways. In the first, Sat is taken to mean devotee of the Supreme Lord. And thus, sanmargam means the path of bhakti yoga, devotional service. In the second, with Sat meaning a seeker of transcendental knowledge, sanmargam means the philosophical path of knowledge, which has impersonal Brahman as its object. And in the third, with Sat referring to the transcendental sound of the Vedas, sanmargam means the process of following Vedic injunctions. Both the second and third of these interpretations of sanmargam lead to the question of how the Vedas can describe the absolute truth. Srila Sridhar Swami elaborately analyzes this problem in terms of the traditional discipline of Sanskrit poetics. We should consider that words have three kinds of expressive capacities called Shabda Vritti. These are the different ways a word refers to its meaning, distinguished as Mukhya Vritti, Lakshana Vritti, and Gauna Vritti. The Shabda Vritti, termed Mukhya, is the primary literal meaning of a word. This is also known as Abhidha, a word's denotation or dictionary meaning. Mukhya Vritti is further divided into two subcategories, namely Rudhi and Yoga. A primary meaning is called Rudhi when it is based on conventional usage, and Yoga when it is derived from another word's meaning by regular etymological rules. For example, the word go or cow is an example of Rudhi, since its relation with its literal meaning is purely conventional. The denotation of the word Pachaka, chef, on the other hand, is a yoga vritti through the word's derivation from the root pach, to cook, by addition of the agent suffix ka. Besides its mukhya vritti or primary meaning, a word can also be used in a secondary metaphorical sense. This usage is called lakshana. The rule is that a word should not be understood metaphorically if its mukhya vritti makes sense in the given context. Only after the mukhya vritti fails to convey a word's meaning may lakshana vritti be justifiably presumed. The function of lakshana is technically explained in the Kavya Shastras as an extended reference pointing to something in some way related to the object of the literal meaning. Thus, the phrase Ganga Yam Ghoshaha literally means the cowherd village in the Ganges. But the idea is absurd. So here, Ganga Yam should rather be understood by its Lakshana to mean on the bank of the Ganges, the bank being something related to the river. Gauna Vritti is a special kind of Lakshana where the meaning is extended to some idea of similarity. For example, in the statement, Simho Devadattaha, Devadatta is a lion. Heroic Devadatta is metaphorically called a lion because of his lion-like qualities. In contrast, the example of the general kind of Lakshana, namely Ganga Yam Ghoshaha, involves a relationship not of similarity but of location. In the first verse of the 87th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj expresses doubt as to how the words of the Vedas can refer to the absolute truth by any of the valid kinds of Shabda Vritti. He asks, Katham Sakshat Charanti, how can the Vedas directly describe Brahman by Rudha Mukhya Vritti, literal meaning based on convention? After all, the Absolute is anirdeshya, inaccessible to designation. And how can the Vedas even describe Brahman by Gauna Vritti, metaphor based on similar qualities? The Vedas are Guna Vrittayaha, full of qualitative descriptions, but Brahman is Nirguna, without qualities. Obviously, a metaphor based on similar qualities cannot apply in the case of something that has no qualities. Furthermore, Parikshit Maharaj points out that Brahman is Sat Asatah Param, beyond all causes and effects, having no connection with any material manifest existence, subtle or gross. The Absolute cannot be expressed by either Yoga Vritti, a meaning derived etymologically, or Lakshana, metaphor, since both require some relationship of Brahman to other entities. Thus, King Parikshit is puzzled as to how the words of the Vedas can directly describe the absolute truth. Om Ajnanatimiraandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Pancha Tattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajeshatanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Ya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhormatamidam Tatradara Na Paraha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. I am very happy to be back in Sri Sri Radha Rasbihari Mandir, one of our most beautiful and important temples in the entire ISKCON world. And it is nice to see so many assembled devotees, and the number keeps increasing day by day, thanks to the wonderful services and preaching done by all the devotees here. We are beginning a new chapter in the 10th canto, the 87th chapter, the prayers of the personified Vedas. And in this chapter, we begin by hearing Parikshit Maharaj asking a question as to how the Vedas directly describe the supreme absolute truth when we understand that the supreme absolute truth is anirdeshya, which means it cannot be defined, cannot be described in words. So how then can the Vedas describe the supreme absolute truth? So now, in answer to this question, Shukadev Goswami is going to cite another conversation that happened where the same question was asked by Narad Muni to Narayana Rishi. And in this way, Shukadev Goswami gives some very nice explanations citing from the evidence given by previous authorities. And in this way, Narayana Rishi then explains to Narad Muni another conversation that happens in Janaloka, between the saintly people assembled there. One of the four Kumaras, Sanandana Kumar, answers the questions of the other sages on exactly this topic. So we can see there is a process of nesting here. Those of you who are in the computer field, you know what is nesting, something within something within something. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is a dialogue that happens between Suta Goswami and the sages who have assembled at Naimisharanya. Within this conversation is cited another conversation between Shukadev Goswami and King Parikshit. And in this chapter, Shukadev Goswami will relate another conversation that happens between Narayana Rishi and Narad Muni. And then within that conversation, there is another conversation that is narrated by Narayana Rishi, which happened between Sanandana Kumar and the other sages who were assembled and who reside in Janaloka, in the higher planets of this universe. So this is how evidence is given from previous conversations between exalted souls. And then the prayers of the personified Vedas is cited in answer to this important question. And the Vedas are praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the first question that arises, what is the meaning of personified Vedas? How many of you have heard of the term personified Vedas before? And how many of you have wondered, what does it mean, personified Vedas? You see, as will be explained later in this chapter, when Mahavishnu, who lies down in the causal ocean, contemplates creating the material world, the Vedas emanate from his breathing. The Vedas are actually eternal because they are the breathing of the Supreme Lord. So, but at the time of creation of all the universes, from Mahavishnu's breathing, the Vedas emanate. Now, it is described that these Vedas have forms and they are persons. So the Vedas have a personified form. Personified means that there is a person. Very often we see in the Vedic scriptures, in relation to spiritual topics, that spiritual matters, spiritual objects, they are persons. Just like the weapons of the Supreme Lord, like the Sudarshan Chakra. The Sudarshan Chakra is also a person. So everything in the spiritual world has personality, has form. And since the Vedas are essentially spiritual sound vibrations, having direct connection to the Supreme Lord, and indeed they emanate from his breathing, therefore, these Vedas also have personified forms. So the Vedas are also persons. They are great sages, actually, in their personified form. So they recite prayers to Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is lying in mystic slumber, and they have to wake up Mahavishnu so that he may begin the task of creation. With his outward breathing, all the universes emanate from the pores of his skin. And in the days of yore, when there were monarchies, in the Vedic culture we see that there were a certain class of singers and poets who would sing early in the morning to wake up the king. The king would hear this singing, which was usually of his glories, and then he would wake up and resume his day's work. The Lord, of course, doesn't need to be woken up, but his servants, the Vedas, they engage in this activity to engage themselves in the service of the Lord and to please the Lord Himself. So this is the concept of the personified Vedas. Now it is interesting that Srila Jiva Goswami and other acharyas have explained that the personified Vedas also appear in Vraja Leela as the gopis, as some kind of gopis. Srila Rupa Goswami in the Ujjvala Neelamani has explained that there are two kinds of Rajavasis, and specifically he speaks about two kinds of gopis. One kind of gopi are called the Nitya Siddha gopis. Nitya means eternal, Siddha means perfected. So these are eternally perfect gopis who have descended from Goloka Vrindavan along with Sri Krishna to engage in his pastimes. So there are many such Nitya Siddha gopis. The second category of gopis are called Sadhana Siddha gopis. They have attained Siddhi or perfection in serving Krishna in the mood of Vrindavan, in devotional service, by practicing sadhana for many, many lifetimes. So the Sadhana Siddha gopis are those who have been in the material world, and then by doing devotional service for long periods of time over many lives, they get into the association of not only the Nitya Siddha gopis, but they actually get the personal association of Krishna. And they are born from the wombs of the gopis in Vrindavan, in Vrajabhumi. Now, even amongst the sadhana siddhas, there are two categories. The one category of sadhana siddha gopis are those who don't belong to any specific group. And the second category of sadhana siddha gopis are those who belong to specific groups. And Srila Rupa Goswami specifies two categories of these gopis. He says number one are called the Rishi Chari gopis, and the second are called the Shruti Chari gopis. The Rishi Chari gopis are those gopis who were sages in the Dandakaranya forest. When Sri Ramachandra was passing through the Dandakaranya, the Dandaka forest, these sages were very attracted to the beautiful form of Lord Ramachandra. And they wanted to engage with him in Madhurya Ras. And Lord Ram said, that is not appropriate. But in your next birth, you will be born as gopis, and then you can engage with me and serve me in Madhurya Ras. So these sages of Dandakaranya, they became gopis, and they are called Rishi Chari gopis. The second category of these gopis, sadhana siddha gopis, who are of a special category, are called Shruti Chari gopis. They are the personified Vedas, these same personalities about whom I mentioned. And all these Vedas in their personified forms, they glorify Sri Krishna. And they do so in the mood of Vrindavan also. Apart from glorifying his opulences and so on, they also want to serve Krishna in a very intimate way in the mood of Vrindavan. So these personified Vedas also get a chance to serve Krishna in Vraja Leela as gopis. So in this way we understand at the beginning of this chapter who the personified Vedas are. It's very important to know this because this entire chapter is dedicated to the wonderful prayers offered by them. And Srila Jiva Goswami or Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained that there are 28 verses of the prayers of the personified Vedas, and each of these is spoken by a different Shruti. by a different Veda. So there are many different Vedas, many different Shrutis, which are essentially words that have emanated from the lotus mouth or the lotus body, the lotus nose, as it may be, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like we see sometimes in the prayers of the gopis, as given in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, although the verses come as the prayers of the gopis, but many times these verses are spoken separately by individual gopis and they are clubbed together as prayers of the gopis. A similar thing is happening here for the prayers of the personified Vedas. So this is a good introduction to this chapter. Now in this particular verse, we see Shukadev Goswami being asked by Parikshit Maharaj about how it is possible that the Vedas can describe the supreme absolute truth. Because he says the Vedas only talk about things of this world. They use words, they use examples, metaphors, and so on. But the supreme absolute truth is anirdeshya. He cannot be described in words, he cannot be defined. He is nirguna, he has no material qualities, etc. And he is beyond the manifest and unmanifested material creation. So how can any words, even if they are in the Vedas, explain or describe the supreme absolute truth? So this is his very important question. We all know from Bhagavad-gita, where Lord Krishna says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, Nirdvandva Nitya Sattvastho Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. So, he says now, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. So this Veda, what does it contain? The topics that are there, the Vishaya, what are they? Traigunya, the three gunas. It is only connected to the three modes of material nature, which are material. So Krishna says to Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhava Arjuna. So, O Arjun, become transcendental to these three modes of material nature. Nirdvandvaha, become superior, become transcendental to the dualities of this world. Nitya Sattvasthaha, become situated in spiritual existence. Niryoga Kshema Atmavan, become situated in yourself and be free from yoga and kshema, wanting to acquire something in this world, wanting to protect something from this world. So the Vedas deal with all of this. You should transcend this, O Arjun, and come to the spiritual platform. Now, of course, in this particular verse, Lord Krishna is specifically referring to the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. Because generally, people are very much enamored by all the Vedic mantras that prescribe different forms of worship for making material progress or for having material enjoyment. And even the other sections of the Vedas, Parikshit Maharaj is wondering, how can they describe the supreme absolute truth? Now, in this purport, there is a very extensive description of the commentary of Srila Sridhar Swami. Srila Sridhar Swami is, in the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the original commentator of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, as followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we must, with great reverence and faith, accept the words of Srila Sridhar Swami. So Sridhar Swami says, in understanding this verse and analyzing it and presenting it for our understanding, that generally words are meant to convey something. So they should have a capacity to make us understand something. When I say microphone, this word microphone has some capacity to make you understand what it refers to. This refers to an object. And that is a convention. We have all agreed that this object will be called a microphone. So it is a convention. Based on that convention, there is an understanding that this is called something. It's called a microphone. So like this, words have not just one type of meaning, but they have three types of meaning that Sridhar Swami says. He says the first is called Mukhya Vritti. So the power of words to convey a meaning is called Shabda Vritti. Shabda means the word or the sound. The Vritti refers to the capacity or the potency to convey. So there are three kinds of Shabda Vritti as we have read in the purport. The first is called Mukhya Vritti. Mukhya Vritti means the direct or the primary meaning of something. For example, as is said in the purport, the word go means cow in Sanskrit. So it is accepted by convention that cow will be called go. So that is called Mukhya Vritti. It is a direct meaning, the primary meaning, the literal meaning, and generally it is also called Abhidha Vritti, which means the dictionary definition of the word. So therefore, this is Mukhya Vritti. This is something we are generally accustomed to. In our day-to-day talk, we often speak like this. So then next he says, the next type of Shabda Vritti is Lakshana Vritti. Lakshana refers to some kind of metaphor, some analogy, or some kind of figure of speech like this, a metaphorical expression. And that is somehow linked. And by the way, when it comes to Mukhya Vritti, Sridhar Swami says there are again two types, as we read in the purport. One is Rudhi Vritti, where the word is taken literally. And then there is also the Yoga Vritti that he says. The Yoga Vritti here refers to the derivation of that word from the original word. The example given here is Pachaka. It comes from the word Pacha. Pacha means to cook. So Pachaka is one who cooks. So this word is a direct meaning. It is Mukhya Vritti, but it is derived from another word. So therefore, these are two kinds of Mukhya Vrittis. Then the Lakshana Vritti, Sridhar Swami says, is when you have a metaphor. And that metaphor illustrates that word for those who understand it. The example given in the purport is Gangayam Ghoshaha. Ghoshaha refers to the village of the Ghoshas or the cowherd men. So the literal Mukhya Vritti of this phrase, Gangayam Ghoshaha, is the cowherd village that is in the Ganga. But the village cannot exist in the Ganga. So that cannot be the correct meaning of this. So we understand that Gangayam Ghoshaha means the village of the cowherd men on the bank of the Ganga. So in this way, we see the connection. There is a relationship with the word Ganga. So the bank is connected to the river. So this is an example of Lakshana Vritti. Another type of Lakshana Vritti, which now the third type of Shabda Vritti, is called Gauna Vritti. In the Gauna Vritti, generally, the word is compared to something else that is similar to it. And the example given in the purport is Devadatta, Simha Devadatta, Simho. That Devadatta is like a lion. The literal meaning is the lion Devadatta. But Devadatta is a human being, he's not a lion. So it is an example, it is a similarity. Because Devadatta is very heroic, so he has the qualities of a lion. So he's called a lion. So we cannot understand it by Mukhya Vritti in this case. So this is how he explains it. Now, Shukadev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj is asking that neither by Mukhya Vritti, Rudha or Yoga, or by Lakshana Vritti, or by Gauna Vritti, can we understand the absolute truth from the words of the Vedas. Because the Vedas are beyond words, or rather the supreme absolute truth is beyond words, is beyond the three modes of material nature. So in this way, Parikshit Maharaj's doubt is very relevant. The problem comes when we try to analyze things from a non-devotional perspective. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 7, we see a conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the sannyasis of Varanasi. They are very influenced by him eventually, and they ask him to speak on the Vedanta. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he speaks about the proper way to understand the Vedanta. He says, Upanishad Sahita Sutra Kahe Jai Tattva Mukhya Vrityai Sai Artha Parama Mahatvam. He says that when it comes to Upanishad and the Vedanta Sutra, which give us the absolute truth, Mukhya Vritti Sai Artha Parama Mahatva. We should try to understand these Vedic literatures by Mukhya Artha, not by Lakshana Vritti or by Gauna Vritti. And the real glory of the Vedas and the true understanding of the Vedas emerges by Mukhya Vritti, by understanding the direct meaning of the Vedas, the primary meaning of the Vedas. Only when the literal meaning or the Mukhya Artha doesn't make sense or it is absurd, then we accept the Gauna Vritti or the Lakshana Vritti. Like in the case of Simho Devadatta. We know that Devadatta is a human being. So when you say the lion Devadatta, if you accept it literally, it becomes absurd. So in this case, we don't accept the Mukhya Vritti, we accept the Gauna Vritti. So in this way, we understand the Vedas. So this is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's explanation. And he says that when you try to understand the Vedas by Lakshana Vritti or Gauna Vritti, then you come to some wrong conclusions. This is not the authentic way to understand the Vedas. Srila Prabhupada also many times in his lectures and comments gave the example of how some philosophers say that in the Bhagavad-gita, Kurukshetra refers to the body and the 5 Pandavas refers to the 5 senses. And in that sense, the message of the Bhagavad-gita is metaphorical, allegorical. They give this kind of understanding. But Srila Prabhupada says, no, Kurukshetra is an actual historical holy place that exists. So we must take the Mukhya Vritti, the Mukhya Artha. And the 5 Pandavas are 5 historical personalities. They are devotees of the Lord. And we must take them literally, not as referring to the 5 senses. So when we understand the Mukhya Vritti or the Vedas through the Mukhya Vritti, then it is possible for us to understand the Vedas correctly and properly. Therefore, it is only the devotees of the Lord who actually understand the true purpose and the purport of the Vedas. Ultimately, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna and to love him and serve him. So the whole purpose is Vedaisha Sarvair Aham Eva Vedyaha Vedanta Krit Veda Vedevacha. So this is the purpose of the Vedas. So those who follow the Mukhya Artha or Mukhya Vritti to understand the Vedas come to the correct conclusion of pure devotional service as being the ultimate conclusion of the Vedas. So therefore, Shukadev Goswami is going to explain the various angles of vision by which Parikshit Maharaj's important question will be answered. And we will see that in the verses in the coming days. So we will stop here. A very philosophical lecture today, very technical, but that is our practice. Whatever is the verse and whatever is the purport, we speak on that. So therefore, it was necessary to speak what has been described by Srila Prabhupada and our Acharyas. So we will stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So we will end here. Hare Krishna. Only one question because I have to go for a meeting. Yes, one question.
Thank you, Maharaj, for a wonderful class. One question was that now this word Anirudesha is used here, which means that, as you explained, that the Lord cannot be described in words, but there is a contradiction which is Shabda Brahman. We say that is the Lord in the word form. How do we resolve this?
Shabda Brahman refers to sound. The absolute truth is sound. So yes, because the Vedas are emanating from the Supreme Lord, and whatever emanates from him is non-different from him. That is also Brahman. So the sound that emanates from him is therefore Shabda Brahma. And this Shabda Brahma, if we accept it in the proper way, with Mukhya Artha, then we will understand the proper purport and the conclusion of that Shabda. Otherwise, we will not understand it. We will come to some wrong conclusion. Okay? So we'll stop here. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.